Good afternoon from Chama, New Mexico. As you know, I have already finished the New Mexico section, so I figured I would go over like the things that I learned or that like I'm learning so far through New Mexico, and kind of like what I was expecting, what was not happening, kind of just, you know, an overview of New Mexico, just because I think that to me, I thought it was going to be something completely different. And so I kind of want to go over that with you guys. So, okay, so starting off in Lordsburg, I started doing 14 miles. Felt great, did really good. Got in a little bit late at like around 9:30 to camp that day, but was dropped off like around 11 that morning. But so what I had thought initially was that I was gonna be terrified of cowboy camping. And cowboy camping is basically just when you don't set up your tent, you just sleep with your sleeping bag and your mattress, your air mattress, or your sleeping pad, and then you just out in the wild. And so that first day I got to camp so late, and it was so close to my first water source that everybody was there. So all the people that had gone, had started that morning, had stopped there, most of the people. And so so started cowboy camping. Also the terrain was a little tough to set up my tent because I really couldn't put holes in. It was very rocky, very like hard soil, so I couldn't really set up my tent, especially when I got there and everybody was sleeping. So so that was the first night. I also lost my hat the first night, the first day, within the first 4 miles. So I don't have a hat for the remainder of the trip so far. I'm considering getting one. I'm not sure if I'll get one. I don't think I need it so far, but we'll see. I put on sunscreen very like religiously on my forehead most days. But yeah, so New Mexico, very deserty, but like all the flowers were blooming, the desert cactuses were blooming. It was really pretty, and especially because I took the high route, so I didn't take the dirt road. So most of the people, well, I just want to say half and half of the hikers take either the dirt road to Lordsburg, and the one that like you come in to Crazy Cook Monument, or they take the high route, which is a little bit of a longer route, but I took the high route, and I was glad I did. I'm still glad I did, because I was really in it. I am really in it in New Mexico for like training and getting my trail legs. And so then just getting to Lordsburg, I did 2 zeros in Lordsburg, and then left the next day, the 2 days after that. That is when I noticed that I really wasn't getting hungry. And so I thought that's fine, no big deal, that's okay. And so then after Lordsburg, I made it to Silver City. I still felt very much at home in Silver City, just because I had gone there like a couple of times for do like a little small shakedown, a shakedown without setting up my tent or my backpack, which is 2 very important pieces of equipment. And without staying overnight. So I hadn't even inflated my air mattress by my first hike. So I say it was a shakedown to Silver City, but it was more kind of like I did a 9-mile hike one of those days, and I think that was very beneficial. It was good because I was pretty sore, and it kind of like gave me a little bit of like, hey, this is what to expect, especially going into 14 miles that first day. Anyway, so Silver City, beautiful city. It was so gorgeous. I just happened to be there after they have a big bike race in Silver City every year that's called like the Gila bike race or something like that. And so I got very fortunate that I had a hotel room and that the prices weren't outrageous, because I guess the week prior to that, things go up. So So I made it to Lordsburg, where I knew I was gonna do my first one of my first gear changes in there, and so, which was my fanny pack. I took a small fanny pack, and I quickly realized I needed something bigger to like hold my cell phone, my not hold it. My other fanny pack was holding it, but just to have quicker access to my cell phone, to my little camera, what I record with, and then my sunglasses and my glasses as well. So yeah, Silver City, cutest city. I think most of the hikers also think Silver City is like the best city in New Mexico, I think. So again, did 2 zeros there, and then left to the Gila, to go into the Gila. And that's when I think the terrain started to change a little bit. Also, it started to rain. So right off the bat, I think New Mexico, most people assume that it was going to be a very dry state, and I think it usually is. But for me, right out of Silver City that day, and then the next day going into the Gila, it was rainy. Fortunately, it didn't rain when I was doing river crossing, so that was really good that the weather held up for that. The Gila River crossings, the first section, was really hard to find. There was a lot of bushwhacking, for me at least. I spoke to other hikers, and I guess they were able to find the trail very easily. I get lost really easily, so, I mean, so maybe it was easy, but I just had a lot of trouble finding the trail at that first part of the Gila. But after that, the river crossings were amazing. It does slow you down a little bit just because I am shorter, and so the water reached up to almost to my like shorts, so that was a little bit higher, and I didn't want to get swept or like have my backpack get wet or anything like that. After that, went to Doc Campbell's, and then, well, prior to that, we got notification that there was a fire in the area, and that we might potentially had to reroute. And so a lot of hikers did reroute for that fire, even though it wasn't like, they could have avoided it. Like, they were gonna let the hikers through, you know, but a lot of them just would have preferred to take the safe route so that they wouldn't have to do the double miles back. I did the opposite, but that's because I talked to one of the park rangers was talking to us at Doc Campbell's, and she didn't sound so confident. She was like, yeah, maybe by the time you guys made it. So that gave me kind of like the confidence of like, they won't reroute us. So but needless to say, I still took the high route of the Gila. So I didn't do like the 200 something river crossings. And so the reason why was because my feet were already getting like kind of sensitive to being humid, and kind of, I didn't want to aggravate any like blisters. At that point I had like 1 or 2 blisters, but I was like, no, I don't want to aggravate it. I don't want to do anything to like harm my legs. And the high route was a beautiful view. It really was. Also, I think if I want to go do the river crossings at the Gila, like I can take, you know, a weekend trip one of these summers and go do that. But also I think the river crossings really slowed me down, so I was like, no, I'd rather take the high route. But yeah, okay, so then the Gila, so Doc Campbell's, took the high route, and then got to camp at Snow Lake, which was opened right as I got there after the fire. So I was really lucky that I didn't have to, that I got like the whole campsite to myself, because everybody thought it was closed. So, but yeah, so wow, that seems like forever, and it's only been probably like half a month ago. And so, alright, did Snow Lake, and then got to, where did I get to? Was it Grants? No, it had to have been Davila was the next big town. Yeah, so that was a very long stretch from from Silver City, and I knew that. I knew that Silver City was kind of gonna be like one of the last major hotels that I got to spend, because after that it was Pie Town, from Pie Town to Grants. And so the only reason Grants has, not the only reason, but I'm sure or pretty certain that the only reason Grants has a hotel is because a big highway runs through there. And so that was that. That was a very long stretch. I did see a lot of people, a lot of hikers kind of fall through or just quit. I saw one just quit in front of me. He just told me he was done, and there was nothing wrong with him. He just said that's not what he came here for. The trail gave him what he wanted, and he was gonna go back home and, you know, try and find a job and find a family, build a family. So that was kind of interesting to see, but it was a very kind of lonely stretch. It was tough. It was hot. It was a lot of road walking, like dirt road walking. The water carries were long, and like I said, I think the solitude kind of got most of the people, and then also injuries. In Pie Town, there was people taking shuttles to Reserve, or just skipping over to Grants because they were so injured, and kind of things like that that were it was making me a little bit concerned, and that's when my feet started to hurt, in my case. So but yeah, that's when I was like, okay, this is the tough spot. And then after Pie Town, scenery was still kind of not so great until I got on the road, and that on the actual road, pavement road, paved road, and Las Ventanas Park and all those lava rocks. That was gorgeous. That was really, really, really pretty. Unfortunately, it was a road walk, so I just got a hitch and, you know, didn't want to deal with it, because there was also curves on the road. So yeah, but I was also very glad to make it to Grants. And once I made it to Grants, I zeroed what I initially thought was going to be for 2 days. And then I ended up extending because of weather for Grants, just because it was, you know, raining, and I knew the elevation was gonna be tough. Yeah, so Mount Taylor, I was still pretty, at this point I had met one other hiker, a female hiker, a girl hiker, and she was kind of texting me on the status of the trail, and that's really good, because I really appreciate her, because she kind of sends me back, when she gets to town, she's like, hey, I got here, how are you, how's, you know, she checks in on me. That's really sweet of her, and she kind of gives me the status of how her hike went, and what she experienced, or what route she took, because there's alternate all over on the Continental Divide Trail. And so that's really nice. I still keep up with her. And so at this point, I'm still hiking alone, pretty much. You know, I'll see a hiker here and there, we'll leapfrog, and that's how kind of it works. But you really just, you know, do small chat, and kind of keep an eye of hey, where are they? Or, you know, I wonder if they're near or they're far. And I don't know, for some reason it makes me feel a little better to know that there's kind of someone, or see someone, because one, I'm like, oh, I am on the right trail. You know, I haven't gone too far, even though I have my app and all that it's really is so mental. And so then I made it to Mount Taylor. The day, that was a hard climb for me. I don't know, but I think it was a really hard climb. It took me 2 hours to get up there, but I think I also lost the trail that day, so me and losing the trail. But okay, so that was that. What else? All right, and then the second day after Mount Taylor, I found a big water cache that someone had left there that was unexpected, and there was a group of hikers around it, and that's where I met this group that I've been kind of leapfrogging with, and kind of like bouncing like back and forth of like, hey, you know, intel about like the trail. Even though we have far out comments, we still like, we all have that one person that's ahead of us and sends us like back like info on what's going on the trail in front of us. So and so then after Mount Taylor, it was Grants, and then I think Cuba was the next one. That was also a pretty longer stretch after Mount Taylor. And then after Cuba, we had that Oasis, Camp Oasis, which was Trail Magic. That the scenery really changed there too. After Cuba, it was kind of like the mesas, like the big rock formations, kind of like it looked what Arizona would look like, but now it's New Mexico. So beautiful, beautiful scenery. I was getting into the 10,000 feet. It was cold, still some rain on the trail, but when it's hot, it blazes. It really does blaze the sun on, like when it's warm and out. But when it rains, it just shifts. Fortunately, I haven't seen very much lightning so far, so that's good. All right, so made it to Cuba, and zeroed in Cuba for 2 days again. And then after Cuba, I went over to, what was it gonna be? Yeah, after Cuba, it was more mountains. It was more mountainous, not so many mesas, although there was one mesa, but it was more mountains. Some burnt areas. Water carries got a lot easier, way too easy, to where I got too confident. But the climbs were still pretty big for the terrain. I think New Mexico is like, sometimes they're just like, fine, we'll just put a climb here, and they're like, go straight up instead of adding switchbacks. But yeah, okay, so after Cuba, made it to Ghost Ranch. Getting into Ghost Ranch was, like, to me, one of the most difficult things ever. Frustrating. It was frustrating because it was a dirt road walk, and I broke one of my rules. And so my rule is, here's my theory. So I feel like if I'm on a dirt or a paved road and someone offers me a hitch, I feel like that's trail magic. And mind you, I'm not a brand new thru hiker, so I explain that to other thru hikers and they're like baffled by it. But so yeah, so on that stretch, older couple had offered me a ride, and I said no. And I'm like, oh man, I broke my own rules. And sure enough, right after that, I had like a huge blister that popped, so I had to like pull over, and it was warm, so I had to like pull over, take care of my blister, make sure like I covered it, treated it, all of that. And I'm like, I knew I should have taken that hitch. And so then afterwards, finding the entrance to Ghost Ranch, because it's a private property, it was like, ugh, it was so frustrating to me. I ended up like jumping like rails and stuff like that, and it was to what turned out the correct way to go in there. So anyways, at least one of the correct ways to go in there. Made it to Ghost Ranch. I had one of the best sleeps in Ghost Ranch because I showered. I was getting really itchy, and I was also, my campsite was facing like a mountain, so I was able to open one of my tent flaps that was facing to nobody, and slept that way, so wind was coming in, and it was just really, really good sleep. And then coming out of Ghost Ranch, it was gorgeous, just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. But again, a very steep hike out of the valley, or in